right, everybody, welcome to Pro Wrestling Wire Radio here on ProWrestlingWire.com, the AIWF network, and on all podcast platforms. This is Rick Del Santo alongside Uncle Otis, and we have a very special guest today in Mooch. What's going on?
Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Fantastic.
Good afternoon.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about your wrestling career and what's going on with you now. Of course, you've had 20 years in the business, as we were just speaking about before we hit the record button. And let's see, I want to know where did you train with Jason Knight at the ACW school?
So the funny thing is I just was showing Andy, I found my contract that I signed with Jason. November of 2003, I started under Jason, his second school. So the second and last one. So yeah, 2003. And then a couple months later, ironically, Brian Anthony started training. So we were one and the same right around that area. So yeah, Jason Knight, the one who gave me my start, towards the tail end of Assault. So I got to work on my first show was at 104, their rock fest that they used to throw. I'll never forget the phone call. He was like, you want to work? I'm like, okay, sure, whatever you need me to do. Yeah. So that was my first show, the last rock fest that they did. And my tag team partner for that show was Bobby Ocean.
Okay.
Before he was Bobby Ocean. So that's a weird. So yeah, me and him tagged against Nick Richards and Kurt Adonis, but they were under Matt. My second show was the last ACW show Jason did at Riders, and Chris Candido was on that show, and that was right. He passed away in 2005, so 2004.
Yeah, around there. Yeah.
I got to hang out in a locker room with him, and then I did a show in New Jersey. Jason got me booked on, and then I didn't start working again until Milano started running DPW. Bobby Ocean got me booked, and he was my first feud there. So 20 years on and off.
Now, DPW, they ran at was it the Portuguese Club in Naugatuck, Connecticut, correct? Yes.
Sir.
I used to drive past it every weekend on my way to my grandparents' house every weekend. So I remember them. DPW ran there. They ran some rather interesting shows as well back in the day. Dylan Cage, was it Dylan Cage that ran it?
No. He was Milano used him, but no.
Right.
Milano was promoter, booker, webmaster, everything under the sun, you name it. So
right.
Yep,
right.
They were the main company I worked for. And then he took a break and opened a school on East Main. And then we started running over there. So, and I ironically lived in that school for like 6 months.
Wow, that's pretty weird. Wow, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I don't mean weird, but sorry.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I would help clean up before the shows, set up before the shows, help train the guys.
Yeah.
So that's where my training was very old school too. I would learn as I went to shows too.
Right.
Back in the day, I would get in the ring with everybody and anybody. So even now, I'm still learning.
Who else was around that time? Like there was, there was obviously Ron Zombie was around, I know that Jason brought in guys like Balls Mahoney, a lot of ECW alumni, around that time too.
Yeah. So like I said, when Jason ran the last two Assault shows, I got Candido was the one he brought in. And then when he went to help Mike, Mike brought in guys like Wagner Brown, Slick, Zombie, Luis Ortiz, Alpha Jr. That's really all I could remember. And then he did bring in Ball, but he was like regular Hamrick. Yeah, Hamrick. But then at some point when we transitioned to the school, he tried to keep it local, not so much big guys. He would give anybody. Yeah. So that was my main company. And then I worked for CTWE when they started up. I did some stuff in Maine. Where else? when Doc ran EWA the first time,
Hmm.
I was there. I did a couple shows for Power and Glory Wrestling. That's where I met Andy Sweet. I was all over the place.
Now, Power and Glory Wrestling was Roma's first company and school, attempt at a school and company, correct? Now, I remember they also had local TV.
Yeah. So ironically, he wasn't involved with the company so much. I believe that was a Brian Anthony thing.
Okay.
So the company was Brian Anthony's, I believe. I may be wrong. But then, yeah, they opened a school with Roma, and then that started bringing in those guys.
Yeah, I remember them running shows at one of the high school in the community in New Haven.
Yep.
I think like Tito Santana would be at one of the shows, Stevie Richards, stuff like that.
Yep.
They'd bring in some guys, and they would pack a pretty good house. It was a lot of fun back in the day. And like I said, one morning uh, I guess came across the television just flipping through the channels one Saturday morning, and it was like a 30-minute program, and it was I think it was very well put together for a localized wrestling program.
Yeah, it was. And two, I learned a lot from Milano because he used to do that for Jason. Jason ACW was on the public access stuff,
Right.
and then he would do when DPW was doing their thing. He would do like a web only. But I believe, yeah, I almost worked for CCW, almost.
Okay. Yeah.
Just I was
Uh,
very loyal. I tried to get over in one company. That was always my downfall. Stick with one place and get over there. I didn't like to travel, and everybody was like, "Oh, you need to travel," and I'm like, "I guess."
well, if you want to make money, you got to, try to get out, branch out everywhere, really,
Yeah, money.
So, because I'm sorry, I was going to ask, is that the reason why, like, now I see you at, Paradise Alley rather often? And is that kind of, you've got some loyalty there with Paul and Mario and the guys?
So ironically, I want to say it's been like about 8 years ago, prior to me moving to Florida, I was working for Paradise Alley was the last company I worked for before I went to Florida. One of my last matches up here was against Holiday too. But yeah, I try and then I tag team a little bit with Andy before I moved to Florida. But I like one, yeah, RPW. But not saying I don't get offers to work other places, but I'm very just loyal to, and it's got to be. I don't want to do one show to do one show.
Right.
You're either going to see my stuff and like it and want to bring me in, because I like telling stories. That's my big thing. I like doing promos, telling stories. We have social media, YouTube, all that stuff. Get your stuff out there. I tell these guys all the time, film stuff just to film it and throw it out there. You may catch somebody's eye, but I slowly may branch out. But right now, I like what I'm doing there. So it's very much if something else interests me, I may step out. But right now, to me, that's the place to be.
And right now you're working that, or you might be on the heels now of that story with Bull.
Yeah, well, me and Bull, that the I Quit match was the final,
the last chapter.
Now I got my eyes on the United States champion, Mr. Frost. So I threw a promo out there. Let's see if he accepts the challenge.
So that could be a very interesting matchup. Ryan Fraust has been kind of tearing it up as of late. He's branched out, and I'm glad to see that he's a part of Paradise Alley a lot more now than he has been in the past. Probably in the last, I'd have to say, what, year or so that he's been kicking it there.
I've noticed. I do a lot of homework, so I pick and choose a lot of who my targets are going to be.
Right.
They don't call me the mercenary for nothing. I pick and choose my jobs very wisely. But
right.
I think we can have some good matches like me and Dredd did. I think there was a good story there with me and Dredd. So
and that next Paradise Alley show, I mean, you laid out the challenge. Their next show is July 13th at Armada Brewing in New
Yeah,
Haven, Connecticut. So that could possibly take place there if he accepts the challenge.
if he accepts it, I think we have a little more leeway there too. Who knows
Yeah.
what could?
Yeah.
Who's
There's a lot more space than at the training facility as well. So you guys, like you said, you can go a little wild, I guess you can say.
a little wild? So let's see what his response is. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I have my eyes on a bunch of other people too, but
Oh, really? You want to
Care to share?
yeah, you want to share, go through that list a little bit?
um, let's see. I'd like to take another crack at Bloodsaw.
Okay.
There's always Bobby Ocean. I worked with him on and off throughout my career. I think he's a lot of good hands out there. Bloodsaw, Bobby Ocean. There's a lot of young guys too out there that I see that I'm like, let me get my hands on them. I could tell a good story. There's a gentleman sitting on my couch, Mr. Andy Sweet, who we've never worked. So when he's good and ready, maybe down the road we can plant some seeds with that. But yeah, Sunset Steve, I like to place, brother. Sunset Steve, he's a guy I'd like to get my hands on. Yeah, there's a lot of.
Now, do you think that now would be a good time to maybe put that challenge out to Bloodsaw, because maybe you could get a shot at that AIWF title?
Yeah, let me focus on Mr. Frost and maybe that United States title out of his hands. But my door's always open. Whoever wants to knock on, come knock. But
now, recently, we got to witness you make a debut for another company. Before we can go back to Paradise Alley and other stuff shortly, but we just saw you. You did a double shot actually recently. I guess in the last, what was it, a month ago? You worked Tetsu, and then you in a four-way. You debuted in a four-way, and then flew down to Paradise Alley to work another match. I believe that was with Dredd as well.
Yeah, that was a street fight with Dredd. But yeah, Tetsu, it's to me that they got a feel of they could be something good.
Yeah.
And while I was in Florida, I got to work in a six-sided ring. So those are always fun. But yeah, hey, we'll see what comes of that. Like I said, I reached out, and those three other guys I shared a ring with too, they were all great performers. So I think we told a good story there too. And like I said, my door's always open. If you want to use me, I'm right here.
If I remember correctly, Jorge Sante was in that match, correct? Didn't he make his Tetsu debut as well in that four-way? I've had the opportunity to call some of his matches recently, quite a bit in New Age Wrestling, and of course he made a Coliseum debut, and I did commentate for the four-way as well in Tetsu while I was there. And I got to tell you, he is an outstanding performer. He really is. He is like a wrestler's wrestler. He's been doing it also over 20 years. And he also is a instructor at a wrestling school, excuse me, which right now slipping my mind. I do know it. But what would you think about doing a one-on-one with somebody like him?
So you read my mind. He's got a great look. He just everything about him yells, "I'm a professional wrestler." So hey, like I said, we got to touch a little bit in that match. So we'll see. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Artis, you got anything?
No, I'm actually absorbing, because I've not had the pleasure of talking with Mooch really at all. And so, to be able to sit here and to listen to some of the stories and things that he's telling is just, I'm a little bit, smarking well, maybe more marking than smarking, right?
So it's funny that
Go ahead. Sorry.
So it's funny that you speak of New Age. So, but years ago, I worked for them when it was New Age old time wrestling.
Right.
Under Richard Blake. I was doing a different character then, but yeah, I worked for him. I'd be open to. I was thinking about reaching out to him. Maybe, like I said, I extend the olive branch, but I want to tell stories. So if you're going to bring me in, I'm not saying I'm like this worker that needs, but let me tell a story. Let me work somebody. I don't, not opposed to doing one shots or this, that, the other, but I like telling stories. Let me be creative. Let me.
So you're very old school in a way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the with the that you want to tell stories as opposed to just
What?
certain companies will just have matches and then they don't extend it to they don't
Yeah.
give you a reason to come to the following show. You know what I mean? You're telling
Good
stories
point.
and you it makes you say, hey, I want to buy a ticket for next month's
Mhm.
show or next week's show, what have you. So you're more interested in just being out there, being a character, and giving the fans something to hold on to and to show up, giving the fans a reason to show up to a show.
Exactly. Unless you're doing like a super show to where you're like helping promote other companies. I don't like, not saying your whole card has to be filled with stories because that's very
Right.
time consuming, but at least give them something. You know what I mean? If you're going to do
Yeah.
matches, that's tricky too because you have to put on matches that are going to draw the people in.
Right.
So, not saying I'm some superstar that I'm going to bring a million people, but if you let me sink my teeth into something, like I said, I think me and Dredd told a good enough story to where people were interested. And
What was it? What do you think it was like working with Dredd? Because Dredd is a very good friend of the show. He's appeared here numerous times, and obviously he's reaching close to 25 years. He's got about 2 years away. He's gearing up towards retirement, and he's really held his own and become quite the name in the New England area and in our area of Connecticut. So, he's I think he's someone that's very good at telling stories, and obviously you guys told a very good story.
so, me and Dredd, it was a bucket list thing.
Mhm.
So, obviously, we have a very entangled story. He was trained by Jason. I was trained by Jason. His run was over before, right as I started, so he took a hiatus. And then right around '06, he showed back up. That's when I met him, and he came back to wrestling. So, and then we would train together. We would, when Milano had his school in Waterbury, we would work out together. We would get in the ring together. We would talk every day, and just, but like everything, people grow apart. And then when I came back to Connecticut, we just reopened that door, just like picked up like it was nothing. And I was like, huh, there's a story there. And I pitched it, and I think we had 3 good matches. So
And
it's
he's
just,
very much like you. He enjoys telling the story, and he likes that old school vibe of doing that.
yeah, that's how we were trained. That's how we were brought up. So it was just tell stories. Let that's what wrestling is,
Yeah.
telling stories.
I
When
enjoyed
did you?
watching. Oh, I'm sorry, Rick. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I actually had caught two of the matches, the last two matches, and I enjoyed the heck out of them. I really did. You two have a great chemistry,
Well,
and everything was so fluent, and I just enjoyed knowing that this was another stepping stone to what we've been watching between the two of you, and knowing that there's a story there just makes it more interesting to me anyway.
and
The
that means
last.
a lot.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, it means a lot too because it's, hey, it may not be for everybody. Wrestling to me, everybody has their own niche and interest. I will never crap on like what somebody else is doing because, like I said, wrestling has something for everybody. I've never been one of these fans that'll go online and just crap on everything. It's like, then don't watch it. You don't gotta watch it. Don't it. That's It's our job to entertain people. So
Mhm.
I may not entertain you, but that doesn't mean you got to poop on everything. So yeah, it's just the funny thing about me and Brett too is we did it very old school too. We knew the finish, so we would walk and talk and just feel it. We very much listen to the crowd too. I've always been trained, listen to the crowd. When you feel like you're losing them, it's time to take it home. And then too, being in the moment when I would watch the matches back, I'm like, wow, we went 20 minutes. It didn't feel like 20 minutes. A lot of it felt like we were in and out. And then, yeah, so my next target's Ryan Fraust. I think we could do a pickup where me and Dredd left off, and it's going to be some hard-hitting stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I can imagine. Frosty is not one to be you know, he is he doesn't take it easy on his opponents ever. I don't think so. And he likes to toss people around like a sack of potatoes, if you will. And you know, he's been one that's really built himself up over the last especially over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm a heavy sack of potatoes, so let's see if what he's got. Like I said, when I was in Florida, I would watch a lot of what was going on up here. He's a guy that I noticed, and I'm like, huh, if I ever go back to Connecticut, he's a guy I want to get in there with. And just there's a lot of guys that I'm like, let's see if I can get the bucket list stuff checked off. I worked a little bit in Florida, but Florida was a different monster. Different, very, very, not saying up here isn't, but very clicky. Like you have to know somebody to get in. But yeah, I definitely stayed in the know of what was going on up here. So
Do you mind talking a little bit about your time in Florida? Like, where did you work? Like, what would I be familiar with any of the companies down there? Like, I mean, you'd be surprised. I really study a lot of what the hell goes on throughout the entire country of you know, independent wrestling. And Florida, I got a lot of friends and family down there, so you know, I always look for when I travel down there for shows and stuff.
so when I went down there, I took a break because I was just like physically, mentally, just like needed a break.
Mhm.
And I was going to school at the time, so I was like, I couldn't, if I can't give 100% to it, I'm not gonna do it. So I took a break, and then come to find out, I knew one of my old friends lived down there, and he's like, hey, I got this kid who was starting up a promotion. It went by LCCW, Legacy Classic Championship Wrestling. And I went in there, helped him do some, I didn't help him book, but I would pitch ideas and try and help out down there. But he was one of those promoters that wanted to learn how to wrestle so he can put himself over, and he didn't want to tell stories either. They wanted to have matches just to have matches. And I'm like, not saying it doesn't work, but if there's not a story there to suck the people in.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then also one of my old friends, he went by a Hound Dog in Connecticut. Then he moved to Florida. I worked for him down there. He runs Amp Pro Wrestling. Worked a little bit for him before I came back up here. And then there was a Go Pro Wrestling. They had a six-sided ring. But other than that, like, again, too, I have that thing to where I don't branch out a lot. And I'm like, let me stick to doing what I'm doing. But yeah, I didn't work a lot down there. And then next thing you know, I blinked and I'm back in Connecticut. And Mr. Andy Sweet helped me get back in there with Roma and Mario, and the rest is history.
So you still work out at the facility quite a bit, right? And you help some of the younger students there in like Mondays and stuff like that, Mondays and Tuesdays.
So I used to go a lot on Tuesdays, and then slowly it switched to Wednesdays, but mainly Saturdays now.
Okay.
Because it's a smaller it's a smaller class, and that's my favorite part now. Getting to help the younger guys. I like it when they get it, when you see them get it, or you can help. Hey, don't try it this way. But yeah, Saturdays it's a smaller class, and it's like it's a very much it's a different setting. But yeah, usually Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays are the days I'm usually down there. But it's mainly the Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to say that I saw you, I thought about 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday. Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's where I feel at home. I enjoy training. One of my favorite things. Once I walk through that door, I shut off the real world and I get to just get in the ring and train and help the young kids. That's, like I said, that's my favorite part, just helping them get it. Yeah, like Andy said, it's very much giving back to.
Right. I go down there on Monday nights sometimes, and I hang out with my good pals Mario and Kevin Sabin, the enforcer, and we shoot the shit, and I get to watch some of the guys train. It's a lot of fun. I've met a lot of great young people that are in there training now. Some newer guys. Of course, there's guys like Sunset that still go there and work out, and that school has birthed a lot of really great people. And really, I guess guys that have really made their mark in the last few years, such as like Holiday and the Miracle Generation and the Haven and stuff. So, what for as far as like the newer, younger students, is there anybody that you have your eye on that you think that could break out of there pretty well?
Just stole the question out of my mouth. Thank you.
I think a lot of the talent that has been debuting at the brewery shows, I think they all have a lot of great potential, because too, they're always asking questions. They're always trying to get better. So I just think, and there's even a lot of newer guys now that just, I think a lot of the guys they put out are all trained the right way. So it's just,
right.
I think, give them time to stew and brew, and they'll get it. They all have it, and I think there's a lot of them that I'd like to get my hands on and work with. Because too, even when I go down there, I like getting in there with the veterans, because it pushes me too. Because once you stop learning, that's why I walked away years ago. I just was like, I don't need to learn anything, and had that attitude. And I was just like, I'm good where I'm at. And I was like, time to walk away. But yeah, I go down there. I'm one of those guys too that I don't mind taking bumps with the younger guys too. I'm like, let me do it while I can. But yeah, that's my favorite part, just teaching. And we try and send them matches to watch. Me and Andy over here will always just, I'm very much not that guy that's stuck like, wrestling was better how I was. I know it's progressing and I keep up with the product now, but wrestling has always been very much what's old is new again. So a lot of times I'll send them stuff to where it's like, watch this because nobody does it now. You know what I mean? Like, just a lot of
between like 88,
yeah,
like 94,
88 and 94.
Like,
yep. We're always sending them like this, like footage of that time frame, because too, it'll all come back around again. And I just tell these guys, you don't need to have a million bumps in your matches. Yeah, less is more. Tell good stories. Work up to. Don't let the fans dictate to you. If they're being quiet, you gotta tell stories. Work it, like, it's just an easy to tell a story. Like with me and Dredd, we told the story. We weren't bumping all over the place. It was very simple. I try and teach them, use the ring. You don't need to leave your feet to tell a good story. So I'm always trying to tell them, slow down, work up to your big stuff. Don't feel like you need to get every single thing you have in your playbook out in one match. Because I always tell them this, how many times are you going to pay to see a magician do the same trick before you're like, it's the same thing over and over again. Save stuff. I don't do the same moves every single match. Pick stuff, choose stuff, save it for a good time to pull it out. Because if you do the same stuff over and over and over again, everybody's seen it. When you have the same matches, it's like, why am I going to come watch you have the same matches over?
But then when nobody does it for a while, and then somebody brings it back to like, oh, I remember when. Yeah, like, they get excited.
I could do a moonsault. If I could get a moonsault every match, it wouldn't mean half as much to where when I randomly pull it out.
That's something that you mentioned, that with the people doing the same thing over and over in every single match. That's something that's very much the formula of modern wrestling. Like, you go and watch stuff that's on TV, like say WWE, AEW, and what have you. It's like literally every week it's the same matches over and over. A lot of times they're wrestling the same exact people. And when Rey Mysterio is going to hit the 619, there's always that setup. You know what I mean? There's always a setup every single match. And And to me, it's too much of the same formula over and over, and it's kind of upsetting in a way. And it's back in the day, wrestling was not nearly as predictable as it
Yep.
is today. Today, it's a little
Good
bit too
point.
predictable because of that same exact formula. And as you were saying, that's my favorite line that I use when I describe professional wrestling is that less is more. It's
Yeah.
that because if you keep doing the same thing over and over and just keep trying to you're just doing it for pops, basically. You know what I mean? It's like you really don't know how to feed the crowd the proper way, I guess. You know what I mean?
And also to feed off the pop, you're going to eventually stop getting those pops, and then you're going to
Exactly.
panic. And then,
Yes.
so I feel like that's the problem with how crazy wrestling has gotten too, because we need that reaction. They just high spot, high spot, high spot, high spot.
Right.
And yeah, it's cheap. It's very much a cheap go-to. Not crapping on what anybody does, because they're all great performers and athletes, but it's like, then I watch.
We've all done it before.
We've all done it, but I watched. This was like, I don't know how long ago. Penta and some other guy, they do the Canadian Destroyer off the top of a ladder through tables, and then the guy breaks his ankle. Now that guy can't work.
Yeah.
You did it just for the reaction. Build up to that big stuff. I feel like guys rely too much on. They get nervous when they don't hear the reaction every single time.
Right.
But how wrestling is, you're gonna have your ups, downs, but tell a story. You don't need all this crazy stuff to tell a good story. Especially with how beat up I feel, I learned to work around stuff. You have a whole wrestling ring. You don't need to use the top rope every single time to get a reaction. Like me and Dredd, we beat each other up. Yeah, we saved some crazy stuff, but we beat each other up. We told the story. We worked up to it. We just work.
I would think that, when you're telling a story, it would bring fans back more than just a big pop, because some big move that gets a big pop, because when you're telling a story, you're left hanging.
Yep.
And you want to know what's going to happen next. And that to me would be all the reason in the world to make sure I get that next ticket, because I want to see where this ends up,
So in WWE, I get it why stories are sped up or not as drawn out as they could be, because you got to think every 4 weeks is a pay-per-view, and then and then too, I think fans, some of them are preset to WWE matches to where, how long is a match on Raw or AEW?
It can be anywhere. Yeah, exactly. Anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. Like, is it ever longer than that? Usually, maybe the main event.
Yeah, so you got to think
Maybe.
attention spans are very hard to keep because we're all preset to short matches. So I think that's a hard thing too, to where if you tell a good enough story, they'll sit through a long match. But indies, like right now, it's easier to tell those stories because you got once a month you could tell those stories. We don't have to rush it, but it's a little bit easier on the indies when you're not weekly TV and then next pay-per-view. But that's my one big thing is like, I want to draw the people in and tell a story and be creative and ideas. To where too, not every fan is going to be into that. They want that quick, 5 minutes, match is over. But
do you think that's something that came into play, wouldn't you say, like during possibly the Attitude Era? Like that, like they just kept doing a lot of fast-paced stuff, and that like Russo and McMahon just kind of trained the fans in a way like that. That's how I feel personally, because
I believe, I want to say it started then. You saw the precursor to it, because you got to think when WCW and WWE were going head to head, every month they would add a new pay-per-view.
right.
So then it was every 4 weeks pay-per-view, every 4 weeks pay-per-view. So storytelling got weird, especially I want to say probably mid 2000s, right around 2010 too. There weren't really anything. Every 4 weeks, story was over. Every 4 weeks, story was over. So sometimes, I watch WWE and AEW in clips now. If I see something that's interesting, I'll watch it. But I've never watched a full AEW show or pay-per-view. Yeah, everything's in clips now for me. If something's interesting, I'll go back and watch the whole thing. But
Now,
yeah,
would you say that that's a lot to do with because of TV? Because I know that the attention span of somebody watching TV is
Yep.
in small increments. They don't. It's not as involving, really, in my point of view. And maybe that's the reason why. Like, if I watch Raw, you got a 3-hour show. You take away maybe 40 minutes worth of commercial time. You still got over 2 hours, and yet in that time, they only have 4 or 5 matches. And like, where does it go?
That's what's hard too. Like even as a kid, like I would watch when Nitro went to 3 hours. It would be I would watch it for what I wanted to watch and flip back and forth. Even now, I feel like people are going to watch what they want to watch, but now everything's going to streaming. I don't have cable, so now too I will watch clips and then wait till it goes to Peacock or wherever I can find the matches to watch. I just think I'll give WWE credit. I feel like they're turning a corner with how they're doing things, and things are getting more interesting. It's just AEW, to me, it's like car crash TV, to where it's like they'll have like a good story, and then it's just back to just
And that's a real shame, really, because you think about it, it's like if you look at the roster, they have quite the amazing roster, like talented roster. There's so many great guys in there. They really sign. It's kind of like a dream in a way. Like they're signing every big international talent, every bigger independent talent, and it just doesn't seem like, in my opinion, I've kind of given up on the product well over a year ago. I mean, I'm watching clips now, but it's usually the clips they post, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I can't finish it. But it's like, and it just seems like they're like you said, car crash TV, and it's like in my personal opinion, I've been watching wrestling over 40 years. I feel like I have the right to give my opinion on it, and it's not very good. They had all the potential in the world when they first started, and for about the good 3 years, they had a pretty good run. They had some things to work out. It wasn't like a perfect television show, but over time they got better. And then over the last year and a half, it just kind of tanked. And it's there's certain guys that have been on TV way too long or shouldn't be. And I think there's a lot of egos involved. And I think some of the talent there has way too much creative freedom. And I don't, and it's just, it's kind of maddening to watch.
And if I may,
such a fan for as long as I have.
Yeah, and the way you said how, first Mooch said about the car crash TV, it's almost like that like you said, they're bringing in all this international talent, but then it's almost like they don't have any kind of story to give them. They don't have anything to really, it's like they got too many talents for what it is that they've got in their head to do with them. And so they're doing these little, snippets here and there and these car crash type of matches. And it's like they're really going nowhere.
Yes.
So
I actually don't really watch much AEW anymore either.
So you want to know why they were good in the first 3 years, in my opinion? They were different than WWE. They're were going to be different. They had small enough, a decent roster where they could tell stories with guys. And I feel like that roster, they were just signing people to sign them. Then you would see them for a couple weeks, and then you wouldn't. when you have so much talent, it doesn't help anybody.
Hmm.
Luckily, I feel like when I was growing up, it was WWF, WCW, and then ECW, where you only had 3 places to work. Yeah, you can go to Japan, but now I feel like there's so many places to work that you don't need a million guys on your roster if you're only going to focus on the same handful of guys. But that gets repetitive too. But now you got WWE, you got AEW, you got MLW, you got Impact, you got NWA, which I was a big fan of them up until like COVID. Then I feel like when they started messing with making the product, but not saying I wouldn't like a job, but
I'm a gigantic NWA fan now. During COVID, they really seemed to tank. They tried to, and it's, I hate to be so judgmental about, because the NWA, there's a gigantic history there, and I've been an NWA fan since I was a little kid. And through its different iterations over the decades, and it had a lot of potential to become a gigantic thing for the first few seasons of the television. When COVID hit, they tried to keep going by doing a lot of online streaming type content, like a lot, I guess, podcast with the stars that they have. And then they went into this gigantic hiatus until things started to clear up, and then the public started to open back up again. And then it just turned into, I don't know what the hell happened. They started to just, they did this big push with Tyrus, and and gave him the title. And the writing, I think Billy Corgan should not be necessarily doing the booking, because I don't think, I think he's in a way, he's similar to Tony Khan in a way, in my opinion.
A little more of a mark, maybe.
He's a very big, he has a lot of money, and he just, he's just bought a wrestling company, and he's just booking things to book things. And sometimes it's like watching a bad indie sometimes. Some of the talents that he signs. Now, I'm not going to say, because he has signed one of our local talents in Wrecking Ball Legursky, and I'm glad to see him on my television each and every week. I think it's, good for him. And it's just amazing to see, like, how you can take such a name as those 3 letters and just kind of, I guess, put it through the shitter in a way.
When he strayed away from, I get things got to progress, but
yes,
he really had the niche of making it feel like the original NWA.
Yeah, the old studio TV.
Yeah. Once you started to stray away from that, and like, to me, that's when it lost its like, its luster. It became just like another glorified independent promotion. To me,
right.
it had something special. It was the tradition, the NWA. You felt like, oh my God, I'm watching the 1980s NWA. But then when it's almost like he started to veer into like a bad version of ECW with it. You know what I mean? Like the dark,
yeah, absolutely.
Things, like, it's just like, you had something. You had that audience that wanted to see the wrestling, and you made your belt mean something. You know what I mean? And it's just, again, too, I became a fan of Nick Aldis during that run.
Great.
Just like that whole thing, I enjoyed like the NWAs and the MLWs because they were an hour, and I think they told great stories in that 1 hour. Where a lot of companies have 3 hours, and it's just so much stuff packed into.
See, that's the reason why I like watching, say, the NWA and MLW, because it's an hour. When we were growing up, wrestling TV was an hour. Now every show just about is 2 hours, 3 hours, and it's a lot to take in, and especially starting 8 at night, ending at say 11. And a lot of us have to work early in the morning. You know what I mean? It's just, they put too much on the fans making those shows so long. You know what I mean? To sit there and try to contain everything in those 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, it's like I said, I haven't sat down. And nowadays, as to when I was growing up, there's so much wrestling out there that it's just
every night of the week now. Every single night of the week.
I couldn't imagine. There are people that watch it every night of the week, and I'm like, oh, good for you. Like, I wish I had the attention span to, like I said, if I see something that interests me, I'll watch it. But even now, I'm very much a caveman, and I'll go back and watch older stuff to see, can I pull this out of there and throw it into what I'm doing? And a lot of the Mike Milano, he was a big mentor to me, to where I learned a lot, to where he, yeah, great teacher. Yep, he would film his stuff, and then a lot of indie companies, not saying they don't, but YouTube is a great, Facebook, start filming TV. Like, I taught myself how to edit video. I do all my stuff. You know what I mean? Right now I'm in my half finished studio. But get your product out there. You have free access to Facebook, YouTube, all the social media, to where it's like,
Right.
that too. There are companies that take advantage, and then there are companies that are like, how come nobody comes to see my stuff? Well, if we don't know you exist, you know what I mean? I'm very much, when I first started to, Milano would hand me a stack of flyers, and we'd have to go out and we'd paper the WWE events. We'd telephone poles and stores. I think that's a lot that's missing too. A lot of these guys don't get it and understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually said that myself about on past podcasts and stuff, that until and I've only been involved probably since about last September. And one of the things that I've noticed is I had no clue that there were this many indie promotions, like, in the state, let alone, PAPW right in almost my backyard, because I'm just a couple towns away. CPW, and then you've got, Tetsu up in Bristol, and then there's stuff right over the border in Springfield and stuff. I mean, it's everywhere. But because, like you said, they're not really putting their name out there. And if you don't see it, how are you supposed to know?
Yeah.
I kind of fell into it as a fan. I went to a show and I was like, wow, this was really cool. And I want to come to another show. And I went on Facebook and just started, throwing up some photos that I took, and after editing them and stuff. And then when people started to follow me because they liked the photo work that I did, I saw, oh, well, this guy works he's going to be in Bristol this weekend. Oh, he's going to be in Torrington next weekend. And I was like, wow, where did all these promotions come from? But they're right in your backyard,
Yep. And too, like, I very much enjoy working in front of the settings like the PAPW. It makes my job, it makes me be on my game, because you guys are right there. You know what I mean? I have to be able to perform well. You know what I mean? To where, not saying I wouldn't like to perform in front of bigger crowds, but I enjoy the intimate, like, small, like, where too, if you don't catch my magic tricks that I'm doing a good job. You know what I mean? To where too, to me, we should all start in something like this, because it helps you tell a better story. It helps you become a better athlete, performer. So yeah, there's so much wrestling, it's crazy. Like, once you stumble into it, you're like, oh wow, there's a lot.
And there's, just like I said, there's just so much out there that, and the cool thing about the indies is, with them traveling in, let's say, the New England area, I can hop in my car and, let's say, I want to follow Mooch, and I could follow you in the tri-state area and see maybe, a half a dozen shows or whatever over a couple of months' time, especially because the price is always, very reasonable for a night out, and I just think that people are really missing out on some fantastic entertainment. And that's one of the things that Rick and I really want to do, is we want to push the indies. Yeah, well, we talk about we'll quote unquote big leagues once in a while, but our main concern is the guys that we see on a weekly basis. We want to get their names out there. We want them to be able to enjoy the crowds that come in and make a decent, living and have fun doing it. And there's nothing like, dropping a 20 and getting a few hours worth of entertainment. And it's so intimate too, like fans could come up and get an autograph or, buy some merch. And it's just a all around great time, in my opinion.
It very much is, especially when like the indie wrestlers are very much, they appreciate the fans. We all, just because wasn't for the fans, we wouldn't be able to do this. So it's I enjoy getting to talk to them and just, you know what I mean? Like, it tells me I'm doing a good job, and not everybody may like what I do, but like I said, indie wrestling in general, there's so much out there that there's something for everybody. I've never understood going on a message board or social media and just like, why crap on it? Then don't watch it.
That's a lot of the internet community, the IWC as they call it. You go on Twitter, there's a lot of people bashing wrestling. And trust me, I mean, as a guy that watched wrestling for over 40 years, as I said, I used to bash a lot of the modern product, but there's so much good out there. Why do I have to? I don't have to. So, and now, of course, being part of the industry for the last 5 or so years, through doing commentary gigs and radio and stuff. And, there's no reason, because there's so much positivity to speak about, that I don't even need to focus on, I could sit there and judge AEW online, and I have, and same thing with WWE and certain indies, trust me, because there's a lot of things I don't agree with, and we don't got to get into it today, but it's everything has its audience. Deathmatch wrestling has its audience. It's not me. Intergender wrestling has its audience. That's not me. But if you want to go watch that, go ahead and watch it. I'm more so a fan as traditional professional wrestling, and that's it. And it's a lot of fun.
Don't get me wrong, too. I don't mind when people critique online and go, hey, I do this differently, but I'm more talking about the people that are just like, this guy,
yeah
I don't know, but I just don't like the people that just like crap on the performers. Like, they're just doing their job, you know what I mean?
Because it's not necessary.
Some have more input than the others, but like, it's just, don't watch it if you don't like it.
Absolutely. We're going to be wrapping it up in just a minute, so I just want to know, I want to thank you first off for making this appearance. I'm glad we finally got to get this done, finally, after over a month of trying to get it done, and all the technical difficulties and our time, finally matching. Is there anything that you want to throw out there, and is there anywhere you want to tell everybody that's listening and watching where they could find you?
Yeah.
So I got my YouTube channel up there. You could search Chris Mooch Wrestling. I have Instagram, and then I have my Facebook, and then I have my wrestling Facebook. If you type in Chris Mooch or the Red Devil, I most likely will pop up. But yeah, I'm trying to get that Instagram audio, or that not Instagram, my YouTube audience up, because I just try and get as much of my content up there as possible. So it's like I have a lot more stuff I'm going to be throwing up there, but I try to put all my promos, everything I cut, up on the YouTube.
All right. Otis, you got any closing comments?
Other than I would really like to do a potato with Mooch. That would be a lot of fun. Or maybe a exit or enter interview at one point at one of the shows that you're at. I'd be honored.
Yeah, just like I said, I'm very like, anytime anybody wants to do anything, just let me know. I'm open to. I know my character doesn't seem very approachable, but when I turn off that switch, this is what you get. So I enjoy talking wrestling, and yeah, anytime you want to grab me, just grab me.
Absolutely. We're gonna have to have you. We're gonna have to have you back on sometime soon.
Yeah, we definitely.
All right.
Just let me know.
Absolutely.
Let me throw out one more thing for anybody that's looking to get into business. Please come down to Paradise Alley. You got great trainers in Mario and Roma. Holiday stops in. You never know who pops in. I'm down there. So yeah, yeah. So you'll get a lot of knowledge from a lot of different people who are at all stages of their career and life in wrestling. So check them out.
Absolutely. And Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling, probably one of the finer institutions when it comes to training professional wrestlers. You know, you Pretty Paul Roma, former WCW Tag Team Champion, the legendary Mario Mancini. Look at that Power and Glory shirt that he's wearing. It's a beautiful.
That's awesome.
That's a beautiful shirt. So yeah, you can't get any better. And you're going to go in there, and Roma is probably one of the finer teachers. He might be a little rough from what I understand, but you know, this man was very successful in his career, and he teaches some of the finer things in professional wrestling.
Yes, sir.
All right. I want to thank you again for coming on. And don't forget, everybody, check out ProWrestlingWire.com. And go ahead and check out Chris Mooch over there on YouTube and all social medias, and subscribe. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you guys very much. I don't have one of those Twitter X things, though. That's the only thing I don't got a Twitter. I got Instagram, Facebook, and the YouTube. But thank you guys very much for having me on there. Andy Sweet says have a great afternoon.